Well, hello everyone. How are you? Welcome to tonight. I'm Lou Castillo with Investor Riches, and I am super excited about tonight's topic. So we'll be getting started here in just a few more minutes. I notice a lot of people are still joining us. I think you're going to love the format that we're using tonight. It's called a Google Hangout, and I was first introduced to this technology probably a month or so ago on something else I was doing, totally unrelated to real estate investing. But I was able to be as a spectator on a Google Hangout. And I said, my gosh, this is wonderful technology. You can actually watch people talking, you can see their faces, and it made the entire presentation a whole lot more interesting than just watching a bunch of slides, because I could really felt like I was part of the presentation. So that's what we're doing tonight. I think you're going to see it as something really fun to watch and be much more interesting than your typical webinar. And tonight is just that. It's just going to be a conversation. We're just going to talk about a very important topic, your health. And I know this is not about real estate investing, but I think it's equally, if not more important than real estate investing, because it doesn't really make any difference how much money you make in real estate if you're not healthy enough to enjoy your life afterwards, right? So that's why I wanted to talk about this, and I'm going to share my story and how I got involved in this and why I find it to be so important. I think you're going to love tonight's speaker. He's a wealth of information, and I think more importantly, it's going to give you that perspective that there is a different choice, and there is a way for you to live a long, healthy, happy life, that we don't have to just get old. It doesn't have to just be that way. And we don't have to be relegated to just taking a whole bunch of drugs and, be by the time you're in your 70s, you're on so many different drugs that you don't even know what you're doing anymore. I don't know how you feel, but I hate prescription drugs. And I mean, I even hate painkillers when I have some kind of work done. And I always wonder how people take, recreational drugs, because I can't stand that feeling of being high. But more than that is I can't stand all the side effects that drugs give you. And so I've always been against taking pills and prescription drugs. And now I'm finding out that that's actually a very good thing, that I've resisted that urge. So we'll be talking more about that tonight. And here's another great thing for you, is you can be part of the conversation as well. If you look at your screen, you see off to the right that there's a little chat area, and you'll be able to just type in your questions, and I'll be reading them as the doctor is talking, and I'll interject and ask him the questions. So please feel free to be part of the conversation, engage with us. That's why these are held live. It's interactive with you. I want you to be able to be a part of it and ask your questions and get them out. I don't want this to just be a one-way. And in fact, the doctor and I are going to have a conversation. So that's how it's going to go tonight. There was somebody else that set this up for me, Lindsay. So I'm not sure in setting this up if I'm coming across on the screen as Lou or if I'm coming up as Lindsay. If you see my name up there as Lindsay, don't get confused. Don't think, oh my gosh, what's going on here? What happened? Did Lou change his name? I didn't change my name. It's still Lou. It's just how we had to set this thing up for tonight, so don't worry about that. And just let that not be a distraction for you. So again, I know this is not real estate investing related, but you know what? I just thought this was a very, very important topic for us to get to tonight. And I want to go ahead and start getting into it. The reason I think it's so important is because I want to talk about longevity, but not just longevity where we live long years, but then we don't get to enjoy any of them. In fact, to be frank with you, I've always said, I don't want to live into my later years if that means I have to live by sitting in a wheelchair or sitting on the couch and not being able to do anything. I want to be active. My dad lived to be 97 years old, and he had me at 62. Okay, so, and I was obviously a mistake, but he had me at 62 and lived to be 97 years old. And I saw him being very active. But I've been wondering, is that going to happen for me? And so I wanted to find a different way to go. And I wanted it to be a quality of life. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is being able to get your body to a point where it's so healthy that you're able to have that energy and vitality to really live life and enjoy it. And as you're making money in real estate, be able to enjoy that money and be able to enjoy doing things with it and have the years to be able to do it. I'm guessing you already know intuitively that meds are not the answer to a healthier life, and that's probably what drove you to be on the call tonight. And that's what we're going to be talking a lot about, that prescription drugs isn't really the answer to a longer, healthier life. In fact, the way I look at it, and we'll see if the doctor agrees with me, but the way I look at medicine is it's really kind of a poison for your body. It may solve some problems, but it hurts other areas of your body, and so I don't like to take them at all. And so I knew that there had to be something different. And tonight we're going to show you that difference and what else there is. And let me just tell you my story, my wife and I. We turned 50 recently. I'm now 54, but when we turned 50 4 years ago, and we're both about 3 months apart from each other, so yes, I'm the older one, and she always lets me know that I'm the older one, but she's only 3 months behind me. Anyway, we turned 50, and for the first time in our life, we actually felt like we were getting old. You know, in my 40s, and a lot of people say, oh, when you turn 40, did it feel like something? I was like, no big deal. It was just another year. But something happened in my mind when I turned 50, and all of a sudden, I started to feel like I was getting old. Now, just to give you perspective, my father decided at 50 he was getting old, so he decided to get married, and that would be his first marriage ever, and he married a 29-year-old. Now, I'd been married already for 30 years by that point. But I started to feel like I was old. And here's what that meant to me. Since I was feeling old, I started to act like I was older. You know, what was happening is I started feeling the aches and pains in my knees and in my joints. I didn't feel like I could run as much anymore. I couldn't do the things I could do when I was younger. I now had to start wearing glasses, and so I couldn't see as well. And it's all the things that age starts to kick in. And I kind of figured, well, that's what life is. You hit a certain point and age starts to creep in, and you have to live with that. And of course, my kids and my son-in-law all took the opportunity to let us know that we were getting old. And they're joking, but you know what? It starts to work on you. You start to feel like, you know what, I really am starting to get old. And we started to live like we were old, which meant that we no longer did as much active things. We stopped exercising. We both gained a lot of weight, which for me resulted in high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and I knew I had to make a change. Now, I went to the doctor, and of course, what did the doctors want to do? The doctors just wanted to put me on pills for high blood pressure, which I went on, but you know what? They have a lot of side effects, which I didn't like. Then they want to put me on pills for cholesterol, and then they want to put me on pills to lose weight. And I said, wait a minute, that's way too many pills. I don't want to start taking all these pills, deal with all the side effects, and then wonder if for the rest of my life am I going to have to be on these pills. And if I'm on all those pills at 50, how many pills am I going to be on in my 70s and my 80s? So I knew I had to make a change, and it had to be a different way. And like I said, I think that's what you are probably thinking, that intuitively you know there's got to be a better way, a much more natural way. Well, like always, the universe kind of stepped in and gave me the answer and gave me the opportunity to meet tonight's guest. And it was amazing. He and I got on the phone. We spoke probably for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I was amazed by the information. Well, first of all, the wealth of information he has about diet and nutrition and the body. But he also presented some stats to me, which I hope he'll repeat again tonight. But we're talking about the state of drug companies in America and how they're kind of taking over healthcare, and you probably feel that already, and how much more drugs we're taking now than we did just 20 years ago. And here's something really interesting, the idea that we can actually eliminate most disease altogether without drugs, more talking about nutrition. And I'm going to let him talk about that and about the shocking age to which the human body could actually live productively. You know, if we all are thinking, and this is what happened to me, you know, I hit 50 and I thought, wow, I'm past middle age now. You know, I'm definitely on the decline. This is it for me. hey, look for the canes and the wheelchairs because I'm probably headed for the old folks home already. And this is at 50. So what's going to happen at 60, at 70 years old? And that's why we knew we had to make a change. And we met with the doctor. And then here's what's amazing. We did a simple hair test. Both my wife and I sent in some hair samples and had a lab analyze it. And it came back with a total chemistry workup that said what our body was made up of. That's interesting, but what was really interesting was based on what our body was made up of, the doctor could tell what types of things we were experiencing, where the aches and pains were, whether we had high blood pressure or not, and what else was going on. And then started to say, you know what, it's caused by imbalances. And we all think that it's all about eating the right foods in the right order and so forth. And it's not. It's about the combinations of the foods. And when your body is imbalanced, you start to create all these other problems. And what we found out is both my wife and I have what's called a slow metabolism, which means that we're not getting the nutrients out of the food that we should, not the nutrition out of it. So we're having to eat more to get the same effects. And of course, all the other problems associated with that. So it's been very interesting. And what's exciting to me is that I don't have to be old at 50. I can fix my body, and that's what we're working on now, is fixing our bodies, getting them back in balance so that we can live a long, happy, productive, vital, energetic life. And that's what I want for you all too. When I first heard about this, I said, I got to bring this to my client base, even though it's not real estate investing related, because I think it's that important and that exciting to find out that there really is a different way to go, a much more natural way to go and to feel better. And that's what I'm after. I want to feel good, but I want to feel energetic. It's not just being drugged up so that the original problem is gone, but now you just feel sluggish from all the drugs, or you have 10 other side effects. I mean, just listen to the ads on TV, and they've got to scare you, don't they? I mean, you listen to, oh, you fix this with the drug, but you could cause a heart attack and cause blindness, and it could cause back spasm, and it could cause death. And I'm thinking, well, what's worse? The original symptom or the drug itself? What's happening here? I don't want to take that. So we're going to talk about all those different things tonight and how easily you can rectify it. And I hope you have the same aha that I had, that thank you, that I don't have to just accept getting old and then I got to live with the aches and pains and the loss of mobility and so forth, that there's a different way to go, that I can actually make myself younger as I'm moving forward. I let myself get biologically old, and now I can fix that. So now it'll be chronologically the age is going on, but I'm actually going to have a younger and younger and younger body, and so is my wife. And let me tell you, I'm looking forward to that as well. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker tonight. It's Dr. Greg Teft. Now, Dr. Teft has been in studying nutrition pretty much his whole life. He's a 3-time Mr. America Natural, which means he did it without the steroids and so forth. This is his natural body. He is also a consultant and on the Olympic, he'll say it to you correctly, but he advises the U.S. Olympic team on their nutrition. He's also a nutritionist to the stars. He works with a lot of different celebrities. He's an author of books. He's worked with government. He's in demand. He's on the Fox News Network. He's being courted by many of the other shows. In fact, Fox News thought that maybe he was doing something wrong and, in fact, turned around and said, wow, he's doing everything right. We really need to speak more to him. So what I'd like to do at this point is turn it over to Dr. Greg Teft. Doctor, are you there?
Hey, Lou, I sure am. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on here tonight. I think it's going to be exciting for everybody to hear some of the things that you and I have been talking about in our last few conversations.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm certainly glad the people that have joined us because this story needs to be told. And I wanted to apologize. We had a technological breakdown. I wanted to put the Fox News clip on, but maybe next time, right, Lou? We'll try to get it fixed next time. This Google Hangout is not my thing either,
Well, anybody that knows me knows I always have technological issues. So the fact that we're even able to put this on at all is a miracle in and of itself.
It surely is. But you know what? While you were talking, I dug up a cartoon. I hope that you can see this. Let's see. I'm going to hold it up in front of the camera. Can you all see that? It's a picture of a doctor.
A little bit blurry, but we can see it.
Okay, there's a picture of a doctor sitting across from the patient. Okay, now let me read what the doctor is saying to the patient. And you hit the nail on the head about the drugs. Okay, he's saying to the patient, she's got her arms crossed, the problem is you're over-medicated. Luckily, there are drugs that can help with that. So just to take that one step further, the #1 cause of premature preventable death is from the side effect complications of correctly prescribed medications interacting and compounding over time.
Wow.
That's according to the NIH. By the way, a lot of these statistics are easier to reach on the internet now than ever before. And you're talking about life extension. Let me just throw a quick stat out. And I just updated this because I just wrote my 3rd book, How to Fix the Broken Healthcare System, which should be out pretty soon. But this, you know, to tell you the truth, it's amazing. But here we go. In 1970, we were 5th. Number 5 in the world for life expectancy. What do you think we are now, Lou?
Well, I just heard this recently from you, so I don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
39th in the world for life expectancy.
You know, and that statistic alone really woke me up. It's like, wow, what is going on in this country that's happening?
It's really pathetic. And to be honest with you, you know, we work with people in 18 countries, and I talk to people in other countries, and they just think that America's gone crazy because they don't have drug commercials like we have here. We don't have everybody throwing drugs at them, getting on more pills, even vitamins, the supplement. There's 4 studies, 40 years, the Haynes 1, 2, 3, and 4 studies that actually show that Americans are taking so many of the wrong vitamins are actually causing more problem than not. 58% of America are suffering from too many of the wrong vitamins, too many drugs, too many vitamins, fad diets, right? Not to mention all the toxins out there, and of course genetically altered food. Think of all the people that are stressed out. Stress is a big factor. I mean, when it adds all up to, when you add all that up, when it comes to testing nutrients, cell regulators, and toxins in the body, guess who's #1 worst out of the top 50 countries in the world? Who has the worst looking nutrition test, the most imbalances, the most toxics, and the most hormone disorders? Who do you think?
I'm guessing it's us.
Well, you know what? It is. And, I have people in Europe. I have, I've been doing close to 300,000 nutrition tests in my time. I worked at Malibu Health and Rehab, where we did all the celebs and such, and we did all the tests. There are actually 3,000 tests that can be done on the human body, and they only teach about 150 in medical school because those are considered crisis chemistries. They're just there to figure out what to call your symptoms. After you're sick, you know something's wrong. You go in, and they say, hey, you got MS, or you got this or that. Our tests, the things that we do, and we specialize in, look at all of the minerals, the vitamins, the amino acids, the fatty acids, all the toxins. There's 400 of them, everything from mercury to PCBs, and cell regulators, DNA transfer proteins, testosterone, estrogen. Those are all cell regulators. Prostaglandins. I don't know if you remember the book The Zone by Barry Sears. He said there's no test for this. Baloney. He just wasn't board certified in it. He didn't know it existed. So there's this whole dimension of stuff going on in our bodies that regular medicine doesn't even touch.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second, because I want to go back to the vitamin thing, because I found this to be so interesting. You had said that it's not so great to just take vitamins because, for instance, we talk about the one-a-days, and I grew up with this idea, and I think most people have that vitamins are good, and any way you take the vitamins is great, and more vitamins is better for you. If one vitamin's good, a whole bunch of vitamins are going to be great. And what you actually told me is that's not true, and I thought you were going to get on me because I don't regularly take vitamins, and in fact, you congratulated me for that. So can you talk a minute about that?
Oh, yeah. It's so true. It's really funny because usually when we test people that take less vitamins, usually they're the wrong ones because they've guessed about it anyway. Those people have the worst imbalances. Your imbalances were far less than a lot of people taking, well, I've got some people when we give them that frontline test, the total body chemistry test, we give them that test, and I've got, I guess my record is I have one lady who's taking $1,500 worth of vitamins a month.
Woo!
And she had one of the worst looking tests I've ever seen. It turns out that she had extreme excesses as well as deficiencies. And we're #1 in the world for having both. So she had this calcium level that was off the chart. The calcium wasn't staying in her bone. It was getting in all her tissues and hardening the organs and causing all this chaos. There's all these calcium displacement deposition diseases as a result of overdoing calcium even. Like plaque in the heart or gallstones or kidney stones, frequent urination. I mean, the list goes on and on. And my God, you know, her body was just off the chart by 10. Can you imagine if you went in and you took a regular test with a doctor and you were off the end of the reference range by 10? But
Right.
she had about 60 different disease predispositions developing. She had she had weight, all this crazy stuff. And she's on all these vitamins. She goes, this can't be. I'm taking all this great stuff. I'm taking polyphenols. And she ran this list out. I said, look, sometimes it's better to take nothing at all or to take something really weak. Even the cheaper vitamins hurt you less because you're taking some really strong stuff, but it's not the right stuff for you because you have to know what's inside the body first before you apply any vitamin. So you just can't take vitamin A just because you think you need it. You might take vitamin A and you've already got a vitamin D deficiency, and it makes it worse. If you create more of a deficiency in vitamin D, it then causes calcium to be lost. You cause calcium to be lost, it causes magnesium to rise, which makes your body sleepy. It's like a chain reaction. You know, you cannot affect one nutrient without affecting the rest. It's called quantum physiochemistry. It's in all the science books.
Except that we were definitely taught that taking vitamins was the right thing to do and that one size fits all. So
yeah,
even
well, that was,
the idea of one a day.
no, you hit the nail on the head, but that was maybe 50, 60 years ago when we had more deficiencies. People had faster metabolisms. They needed a little bit more of everything. But what happened is America used to be #1 in the world. Well, they weren't #1 in the world ever for this, but they had about 45% of America were fast metabolisms. This is back in 78, in the early 80s. Now 82% of America are slow. Now there's 8 different metabolic rate types. They're called genometabolic types, really, that our frontline lab has figured out. And it just so turns out that we're all born fast. Now, what is a fast metabolism? It's simply a body that digests better, absorbs more, and utilizes the nutrients in the food that we digest and absorb more efficiently, and releases more energy per bite of food and eliminates waste more easily. Can you imagine your medical doctor talking about this? Heck no. We're talking about engineering a body that processes food and vitamins more efficiently. But it just so happens that no two people are the same inside. We call it the genotrophic concept. It was discovered with World War II, Dr. Roger Williams, when he was studying the people from the concentration camps. That's what really got it going. And in fact, for those types of people, they all had deficiencies, obviously, because they were tortured by, by Hitler and stuff. But it turns out that now we're suffering from the opposite. It's like we were using vitamins when they actually helped a little bit. Now we've overdone it. Now we're taking too many. A good thing's good, but more is better. Yeah, no. We're overdoing the pills. And like you and Margie, you guys had better than average tests simply because you weren't at least throwing that into the mix. It's bad enough with food because you don't even know if the food has what it's supposed to have in it. Plus, you don't know. I think you guys had your stomach acid could have been a little stronger. There were some other things going on that might impair absorption and utilization, imbalances that slow down the energy release in your body, and even some elimination dysfunction. But all in all, you tests were way better because you weren't taking all this great stuff ad nauseum, if you will. So people sometimes, and they think they can guess about it. Well, I have another exhibit in lieu of the fox. This study, can we see that?
Hold it up a little higher. There we go.
Can you see? That's from the Library of Congress. Could you see that, or was it out of focus?
No, that was good. That was good.
Okay, now this is just part of the big. I can't hold the big report up; it'll fall apart in my hands. But this is report number 2. There's about 15 parts. An evaluation of research in the United States on human nutrition. This is the biggest study ever done by the government of the United States. $500 million was spent over 21 years, going from 50 to 71. Let me read you their conclusions. Major health problems are diet related, just like you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. The solution to illness can be found in nutrition. Okay? And then they say, you're going to like this, better health, a longer lifespan, and greater satisfaction from work, family, and leisure time are just some of the benefits from improved nutrition. But they do a distinction between the concept of diet and nutrition that you probably never heard before. Okay? They define diet as what you consume with no accountability for what's left in your body. So you go out and you have an orange hoping to get some C and potassium into your body, right? Mm-hmm. But unless you measure after you eat the orange how much vitamin C and potassium is actually in your body, you're not sure that you've retained it all. And that's the key. Okay, so there's no accountability. But nutrition, on the other hand, is measuring what's in food before you eat it. That's, by the way, where ingredient lists came from. You see those ingredient lists on this? It came from this study. So you can get an idea, oh, well, that food's got this and that, you know, more potassium, more vitamin, whatever it is. But they forgot to tell you about the second part. That is to measure your body after you eat it. And then use what they call the law of opposites to line up your own body's balance. In other words, if your body, and you know, I think Marge particularly was higher in calcium and lower in potassium. So she'd want to eat foods and take vitamins that are high in potassium and low in calcium until it meets in the middle. So she wants, you know, like opposites attract. Mm-hmm. But you can't do that without measuring first what's inside the body and then seeing what happens and then adjusting it to what they call genetic signature, which is perfect balance. And I haven't had a perfect nutrition test first time out from an American in 7 years. I do, and when I work with them, but I get them from other countries. You know, in fact, the most primal tribes they studied, there's about 38 tribes, the Azerbaijani, the Hunzas, the Soviet Georgians, the Lake Titicacans, the Gauchos, there's a number of tribes. Used to be the Inuit Eskimos. They all have perfect or near perfect tests. They don't take vitamins, right? You know, East Indian, Hindu, vegetarians, Tibetans, Abkhazians, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. There's some Asian tribes too. And they go in and they test them. First of all, there's no cancer, there's no diabetes, there's no obesity, there's nothing to speak of in that regard. Everybody lives over 100, no problem. No problem. And they're all out in the field to the day they die. Now, what do they have that we don't have? The same environment, the same food, the same way of life that's been unchanged for thousands of years. And it just so happens that there's a correlation between how much a country has changed. Like with us, it's been the Industrial Revolution. Mm-hmm. How much toxins are put in the environment, how many choices we have, how much they've processed food, how many drugs are being taken, all these things that add up to more imbalances because our bodies are just not capable of taking these foods that we're throwing in and these vitamins and sorting it out to its own balance. An Eskimo has no problem if he still lives or she in the same place and does the same thing their ancestors did because your genes are designed from the environment. In East Indian Hindu, same thing. You know, but you can't swap. You can't make it East Indian Hindu vegetarian, eat whale blubber, or an Eskimo become vegetarian. It'll destroy him. Now, we're not at either extreme. We're somewhere in the middle, perhaps, but it's the same idea. In today's world, more importantly than ever, and it would make sense because we invented most of these tests because we found Americans were so out of whack, if you will, that we've got to get that starting point. Where do you stand now? And then how do we get you back to genetic signature, which in the long run, and you will see this in your test, is what really a picture of what your ancestors ate the most and the least of. That's what we're looking for. And as few pills as possible. Drugs, we get people off of drugs all the time. People are on high cholesterol medication. The problem with cholesterol is just zinc and copper. There's two enzymes that are run by zinc and copper. And by the way, most people don't know this, but all drugs, all homeopathic medications, and all herbs are based on mineral properties. Okay, I'll give you a quick example. Fosamax, which you'll see lawsuits about, it's just phosphorus, the mineral that's been strengthened 1,000 times. They used to give it to women to push the calcium back in the bone because that's what phosphorus does. But the problem is they wouldn't take them off the drug, and they kept them on too long. So then it pushes it back out if you don't counterbalance everything else. You know? Now, calcium channel blockers for heart disease. A heart attack is caused by too much calcium in the heart, not enough potassium and magnesium to push it back out after, with each contraction. So what do? They figured that out, and instead of increasing potassium and magnesium, which you can do with diet and supplements and exercise helps, of course, it expedites this. What do instead? They block the channel that lets the calcium in. But nothing's solved because the minute you go off the medication, you have a heart attack again. When we get things balanced, it stays that way. We fix the problems. We figure out what's different about you and different about me is the rate at which we use each nutrient, about 400 things. That's all it is. You need a little more B6. I need a little more B1. You need a little more squash. I need a little more broccoli. I mean, it's amazing how clear and simple this becomes if you only could test what is going on inside your body before you take a blind leap and you're just eating whatever the latest fad diet tells you to eat, or think that what's good for me is good for you. I'm a fast metabolism. Most of the stuff as a slow metabolism that they tell you to do is deadly for me. It throws me out of balance as a fast, and vice versa. If you ate like me, it would really make a mess out of you. So, you know, what is it? Lucretius says one man's meat is another man's poison. It's so true. And Roger Williams, back in the 40s and 50s, when he was studying the concentration camp victims, he's responsible for more nutrition studies than any other person, the University of Texas behind him. And they found that people eating the same food can vary, get this, by as much as 10,000% in the way their body retains nutrients and uses them. So you might eat something, we'll just talk about protein. You might have 100 grams of protein. I might have 100 grams of the same protein. 15 grams of that protein actually gets into your body and does something good. The rest is lost one way or the other. Either you can't digest it or it's broken down and turned into sugar and other stuff. Whereas I might get all 100 grams to work for me. What's the difference between you and I? That makes all the difference in the world, and it's specificity that counts. Just like regular medicine. You go in, and Lou, can Margie go into the doctor and get a regular conventional medical test for you? Because you guys, well, you know, you live in the, well, you know, what works for me works for her. I mean, we should be able to swap drugs. You can't. It's malpractice. You can't guess it. Now, the government, that same government, if you remember this study, they said that we have to use the German model of medicine, which is the same as what regular medicine is. That is, test your body first. Then put more of what it has less of, and then less of what it has more of until it meets in the middle. And you've got literally 1,800 diet-related diseases that they've connected to your nutrient, toxic, and cell regulator balance. All cancer, you know, a lot of people, just symptoms, 1,000 reasons for a headache. High blood pressure again. You know, a lot of people say, well, I'm on this drug. Well, you know, I do a test on them. They're full of arsenic. We clean the arsenic out, their blood pressure goes kaboop, but nobody pays attention to that. In fact, Dr. Brawley, James Brawley, he said that in his book, he wrote The Food Nutrition Allergy Revolution. He's one of my heroes. He said that the average medical doctor misses about 95% of what's going on with this diagnostic, approach. And that's where all the real action is. He even found all these hidden allergies that nobody else, in fact, they still don't test them. There's 7 ways your body can be allergic. The average doctor just maybe does one test for histamine allergies. I mean, this goes on and on and on, Lou. And all we've got to do is fast track a person into better balance by testing them first. And then instead of using drugs to, you know, kind of give you quick fixes, we're using combinations of vitamins and foods. I mean, the natural things. You hear about all these wonderful things that happen from the right nutrition. Well, this is what they're talking about. People that eliminate their disease tendencies. All these people that are sick, people that are well, they've tested them all, and they say, oh, my gosh, everybody who has fibrocystic tumor disease, breast cancer, prostate cancer, they always have too much calcium, not enough magnesium, potassium. Hands down, plus other things can add into that. Every time. So if we can find out about it years before it ever happens, you know, and it turns into cancer or something, we can fix it so it never does. That's the real power of it.
Let me interrupt you here for a second, because I want to make sure everybody's getting this point right here, because this is what I found so fascinating. What you're really saying, I don't know if everybody's really getting what he's saying here, is that we don't have to just accept that disease is a foregone conclusion. That, in other words, live long enough and you're eventually going to get all the different diseases and things are going to happen to you. But in fact, you can prevent these from happening. And isn't, in fact, that same report you held up a few minutes ago, isn't that the one that talked about that we can get rid of most diseases?
Yes. The solution to all illness can be found in nutrition. I held it up. By the way, I got that from Senator Orrin Hatch himself. This study was buried. This was kept from public view. And there's a book written about it called The Innocent Casualties the FDA's war against humanity. And that's really because, you know, it's a problem in this country that the healthcare budget, this is the dark side, is based on about $3 trillion a year. Now, in this study compiled by Dr. Edith Wire, her name's in here. I'm looking at the study right here. Dr. Edith Wire went before Senate oversight in 72, and she said if everybody would just apply this German model of medicine, testing nutrition as a starting point, and then putting more of the right things in, that, you know, more of the nutrients you need, take the ones that are too high, counterbalance it according to quantum physics principles and all of these scientific principles, about 16 of them, enzymology. It's very complicated, but it really works out to be that law of opposites thing. She said 81% of all disease in the United States could be eliminated in 3 decades. That's what set the sirens off. Can you imagine? Just, Lou, 81% of disease is all, where the drug companies going to go? What's going to happen to the economy? How? I mean, think about that. You know? And I got this, you know, I was an advisor for True Health in Dallas. I was on the medical advisory board. And the journalist was doing that wrote that book was working with them. And, you know, she got me involved with, in fact, we did we got together with the Sight Truth doctors in Washington. These are advisors to the White House. Psychiatrist and psychologist, Dr. Riccio, Simon. If you look up the Say No to Prescription Drug campaign, you'll see me right in there with those guys. They felt that about half the drugs that people are taking are just too dangerous, need to be taken off the market. And we developed this contract with the doctor that nobody will sign. There's 20 million of them out there, but nobody will sign this thing, because what it does is it says you bring it to the doctor and you hold up the contract and you say, okay, doc, I need you to sign this. What it does is it makes the doctor accountable for all those side effects hurting you, and they don't want to sign it. So that didn't work, but it was interesting. It was worth a try. And they told me, even at the White House level, and both the Bush and this administration, these guys have been advisors, they say they are deaf. They listen to the people with the most money. They don't listen to reason. They don't listen to common sense. So you got to realize that bad health is big business. Where's the reward in making you well? Less drugs sold, less doctor visits. Of course, it's bankrupted the system. Less people getting better. You got to hire more people to help you out. You have to take more of your money to buy the personal trainer, get a dietitian, you know, get the more doctor visits, buy more drugs, etc., etc., etc. It's just a vicious cycle. And here's the sickest part, no pun intended, we're getting worse. We have more diabetes, obesity, fatigue, chronic fatigue, hormone problems, cancer. Don't let them fool you. Reduced life expectancy. In fact, they say, oh yeah, our life expectancy is greater. Well, did you know most of that's an artificial increase? Certain drugs like insulin will keep you alive longer. Hey, we shouldn't count that. I mean, that's a given. There are miracle drugs, mind you. But we're overdoing the non-miracle drugs. And we're trying to use drugs that were really only meant there to save you in a crisis in the long term, like with those lawsuits you see all the time. A lot of that's just about drugs that actually work, but people are kept on them. Like that Fosamax problem. I mean, it really worked. I saw it. You know, because if a woman's leaking, or a man, calcium from bone, we have to increase potassium and phosphorus, magnesium to push the calcium back in. But that Fosamax did it overnight. But the problem was, in the orthomolecular, the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine, they talked about it. They said the positive effects wear off in about 2 years, and it starts to create brittle bone disease, the very thing it's supposed to cure. And nobody listened to that study because it wasn't in the New England Journal of Medicine. See, even what the doctors read is very selective. They only read, according to Brawley, maybe 2% of what the latest development all told. And they only really read an abstract, and most of them only read a small percentage of what it is involved in their specialty. So we're really not integrating. We're not being holistic. We're not, you know, we're fragmenting too much. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. And we're using tribal mentality. You know, what's good for me is good for you. No. In a tribe, maybe, but not in this so incredibly complicated society of ours, where anything goes, genes are all mixed up, the environment is toxed up, the foods are corrupted, the fast food's a joke. You know, people are taking all these vitamins and drugs. When you add all that up, it's no wonder we're losing ground. And how are you going to turn this thing around? Well, one by one. We got to go in there and use biocorrective medicine. That's what this is. It's called functionally integrated orthomolecular biocorrective medicine. Orthomolecular means to correct molecules to correct your biological problems. That's what it is. And it's all biocorrective. It's not support. Did you know even the health food stores don't like this? They can't talk you into buying as many vitamins when you have a test in front of you.
Sure. Now,
So,
let's talk about my results here for a second, because what was exciting to me was, first of all, that I thought for sure before I took the test that you were going to ask me a whole series of everything that ails me, and then you're going to talk back to me about those things. And in fact, you didn't ask me anything, which was odd to me, because I thought, well, then how's he going to know what's wrong? And in fact, when we got on the phone and you looked at my test results from my hair analysis, you were able to start talking about the things that must be ailing me. So I said, wow, that's right on. But then what gets exciting is being able to fix it. So, doctor, I won't speak for Margie, but I'll speak for me. If you want to speak directly to some of my results, I'm happy to go through it. My concerns were weight gain, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high levels of fatigue. I get fatigued easily. I don't have the energy I used to. So specifically for me, what do you think is the prognosis going forward?
well, it's truly excellent. I'm just sorry that you're not a fast metabolism. You probably were. Well, you probably started to feel it in your 40s, the fall off. The old saying is that, we're born fast. The longer we stay fast, the longer we live and the better we live. Okay? Not that you have to end up that. Perfect balance is the key. So in your case, really, and in most all cases, the fatigue, the body fat, the water retention, the blood pressure, it's all about sedative versus stimulating nutrients. Remember, your calcium, which is a sedative nutrient, was higher than the potassium, as an example. Mm-hmm. Potassium wakes up the body, calcium puts it to sleep. I mean, you can see this even in something like coffee and milk. If you feel like you need something to help you sleep, would you be more likely, in the conventional sense, to have warm milk or a cup of coffee before going to sleep?
Yeah, I'll have the warm milk to put me to sleep.
Yeah, because the calcium it puts your body to sleep. Now, caffeine is full of it's a high potassium phosphorus compound. By the way, all those energy drinks that we see, the 7-hour energy, all those things, they're all based on just putting stimulating nutrients in. So, I mean, I actually have a cheat sheet. There's about 50 different things that slow you down and 50 different things that speed you up that this lab is working with. Calcium, magnesium, as an example, B1 and B3, B12, D, B7, B17. I got them all here. Zinc, copper. I don't want to read them all off, but I actually have a cheat sheet when I look at a person's test. And of course, your report was pretty elaborate, wasn't it? The lab told you what to do.
It was, right? 30 pages of material there to understand.
And the lab told you. Do you realize that this is so complicated, right? That the lab has to tell you what to do. They took it away from doctors because they have to compare you against their database of 125 million people to be able to interpret this thing. Mm-hmm. See, they've been working with people since, they started, they medically proved, there were 1.5 million people that they submitted to the government. They got licensed not only to test, but to tell you what to do. The lab just digitally pops this out because doctors made so many mistakes in the beginning that it was tough on nutrition testing. So certain labs said, hey, Congress, we want to have more power to tell the people what to do. We can do it all through computers now. We can digitally correlate what their results mean with no mistakes made, where doctors, even Einstein, would have problems with this. So they actually had a lobby for it, and they got special rights and privileges that you'll see a lab in conventional medicine. They just give you a write-out. Your lab gives you the write-out, the test results, and tells you what the heck to do, food by food. Tells you all these, if you're slow or fast metabolism, page after page after page after information, because they don't trust me to tell you all that stuff.
All right, so now I'm a slow metabolism. I've abused my body for the last several years. I've got all the aches and pains, the high blood pressure, and so forth. So am I just stuck with this now?
No, absolutely.
Or do I have to take drugs to fix it?
When we talked, remember I said write down everything that you can think of that's not right and watch how it slowly goes away. I had one fellow, he's a karate guy, George Davis. George is an amazing guy. He's a karate, one of Chuck Norris's star students. And we have a lot of people in karate, Danny Inosanto, the Bruce Lee guy. Dolph Lundgren,
Yeah.
Drago, remember? Yeah. It's one of my proteges. Even Fabio, he says to tell everybody, Fabio loves his hair test because he's romantic, right? But at any rate, with George, I said,
Well,
George,
let me embarrass you for a second. Let me just embarrass you for a second. Do you have that picture of you as Mr. America?
oh, I have one, yeah, a black and white sitting here, just in case, since we
I
didn't have
want
the.
everybody to know that you take this stuff seriously, and you are the epitome of health as well. So show everybody that picture.
Okay. Now remember, I'm 61, so here we go. Can you see that okay?
Drop it down a little bit. There you go. You've got to talk while you have it up there.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Okay, well, that's actually, you can see my number there. That was the third National Mr. America I won. And you got to realize, actually, using this same process, I was world class in 4 different sports. You know, I was supposed to be in the '72 Olympics. I came down with asthma. That's actually how I came upon this technology. I was able to overcome it because I was part of a research project that developed all these tests in the '70s. And they figured out the regular doc, the allergist, they said, oh, you're allergic to, dust mites, cat hair, and chicken feathers. That's all we can do for you. We're going to have to load you up with drugs. You don't qualify for the Olympics. I was supposed to be in Munich. And instead I was hospitalized. And, I went in with these fellows in New York, Dr. Carlton Fredericks. I heard him on the radio. I was actually able to get on. And he said there are all these tests that doctors don't do. And that I probably had chlorine poisoning nobody was detecting, mercury problems, copper too high, all these things he predicted. Went and did those tests. Sure enough, I had hidden allergies. 100 out of 100 IgG allergy tests they did, I was allergic to 78 things. But it was because of the toxic stuff. It was because of the copper, which made me more allergic. I had a lot of nickel, too. I had a bunch of mercury, which makes your immune system go crazy and super sensitive. But once I started to do what you're doing, get the right vitamins and clean up the toxins, and I was able to then go into those other sports. I tried to get in the Olympics again in track and field, came in 5th in the Junior Olympics in the hammer throw. So I didn't make the Olympics, so I had been lifting weights to gain some weight from being a swimmer, and somebody said, hey, you're really strong, why don't you become a powerlifter? So I became a powerlifter, and I was a master's class powerlifter. And then somebody dared me into natural bodybuilding. And every time I was using these tests, and I won. And, I have a lot of followers because of it, because it really helps athletes, and that's why the Olympic team loves it so much, because it'll improve athletic performance so much. And
so at this point for me, even though I've gone through so much, you're saying I'm going to be able to rectify it and get back on the healthy route and feel younger than I feel today.
Absolutely. And, by putting more stimulating nutrients in, and remember, we're creating a situation where for each bite of food, your body releases more energy and stores less fat. That's all about putting more of the stimulating nutrients in. Like tyrosine is an amino acid that stimulates metabolism. Your thyroid gland needs it. If you're taking too much arginine, it antagonizes the tyrosine, and you don't get as much thyroxine. I mean, it just goes back and forth like this forever. If anybody ever wants to go to one, I hope on the new website we're going to have little buttons you can push, because this goes on and on and on. But I do want to tell you, this is, although it's considered prevention and preemptive and biocorrective, and the idea is to not wait to do this, but of course in a crisis you can't substitute regular medical care to save your life, but this can save your life too. We had talked earlier about that situation where that woman gave birth to a baby that we saved. Remember that?
Yes.
Carol. I had in Mission Viejo practice, I had a woman that was full of mercury. And we were detoxing her from the mercury. It was causing her hair to fall out. It was causing upsets in her body, potassium retention, which potassium is the energy booster for all cells. Potassium is probably one of the most needed minerals in the body. If you take all potassium out of the body, you die immediately. If you take all vitamin B1 out of the body, you won't die for about 5 years. I mean, it's just to show you the power of minerals over vitamins as an example. But we were cleaning it out, and part of the reason, the other problem she'd come to me about was fertility. She and her husband, Ken, could not get pregnant. And so I said, well, we'll clean the mercury out, because it just so happens that a high level of mercury is one of the leading causes of infertility. Plus, it irritates the uterus in women, and the prostate in guys. So it could cause cancer later on. So it's a good idea to get out of it. It'll increase your fertility rate. It literally makes it hard for the sperm to implant in the uterus, okay? So we cleaned it out, and they were not supposed to try to have a child, but, you know, they went ahead and practiced anyway and had a mistake. She got pregnant. And she says, well, what do I do now? I said, well, there's nothing you can do now, but we have to stop chelating you. I have to stop pushing so hard the mercury out, because it's all going to end up in the baby. No matter what you've heard, the placental barrier is not sufficient to block all the mercury from the baby. In fact, you'll hear, if you go to the March of Dimes website, and a lot of different websites acknowledge the fact that umbilical cords in America are full of toxic junk, which means it's getting into the kid. It's getting past the placenta. So if mom's toxed up, the baby's going to get some of that too. Placenta does a lot to collect junk, but not the whole job. So I said, okay, we'll stop chelating, but we'll keep you on the vitamins. By the way, March of Dimes recommends our program. And we kept her going. And so I was just sitting in the office one day. I was doing paperwork. And I get a call from the emergency room. It's her husband. He's on the phone. He says, Carol, and she was obviously going through 9 months pregnancy. She says, Carol, he says, Carol just gave birth, but they can't wake the baby up. He's breathing, but they can't wake him up. He says, do you have any suggestions? He says, you know, you've come up with all this stuff in your test, things that nobody ever looked at that in my medical, from my medical docs. What's going on here? So I say, well, probably the baby has too much mercury in the blood. It's probably what it is. I said, so just to you know, to acknowledge that, I would suggest a blood test. I know you hate to think of taking blood from a baby, but, you know, they were afraid the baby was going to die. And it was a premature birth, too, by the way. And so he turned over to the doctor. He says, Doc, he says, this doc says that there's mercury maybe in the baby. And the doc says, well, we can do a test. We'll do that. Okay. So I guess they were taking blood, and then he's talking to me. He says, okay, now if the test comes up positive, it should only take a few minutes. He says, what do we do? I said, well, let's get to that point when we get there. It turns out it's positive. And I said, you got to give the baby zinc to clear the mercury right out. The baby should wake up. That's according to everything I've ever learned. I've never been in this situation, but that's what, you know, should break it, and the baby should start breathing. So he turns around. I could hear him, and he says to the doc, he says, this doc says you need to give the baby zinc. The doctor went ballistic. He says, that's not going to do any good. It was so funny. It was tragic, you know. So Ken gets on the phone. He says, well, what do I do? I go, well, how about if I get the director of the lab on the phone? And here you have the director of a lab telling the doctor that he better do that. You think that would work? And so he turned over to the doctor. He says, Doc, the guy who taught this doc runs a lab, the biggest lab in the world for nutrition testing. Can he get him on real quick, and maybe you can talk to him a second? So sure enough, I got Dr. Watts on. Thank God. He was sitting there, and I told him it was an emergency. He gets on the line, and he gets on with the doctor. I guess everybody would love this. And he said, Doctor, you give that baby zinc. I have this, he just ran by all his degrees, got about 5 doctors. So I run this lab. He says, I'm telling you, you give that baby an IV zinc, and the baby will snap out of it. And the doctor says, oh, no, I never heard of such a thing. This is crazy. I can't do it. He says, you do it or I'll have your license. And he says, that gentleman right there is a lawyer. The doctor says, okay, you got it. They gave the baby zinc, came right out of what they were afraid was going to be a coma. She's one of the healthiest babies you've ever seen. Now, who the heck, have you ever heard a story like that before? Zinc saved the day because mercury completely depleted the zinc. It shut down her system. So same with high blood pressure and things. It's usually just a potassium and sodium inversion. Too much sodium, not enough potassium. They've learned to make a drug that creates the right balance of those two things by altering the way that water is able to enter and leave cells just by putting in different proportions of minerals. So the drugs actually do a lot of what we're doing naturally. We just do it in a way that once the body's balanced, it hardly needs any pills. You don't need as many tests. And you get into that genetic signature, and it's easy to stay there. So our program's actually out to get people on as few vitamins as possible, as few drugs as possible, and use the power of nutrition as specifically as possible. So even with people with high cholesterol, their hormones are affected. You make cholesterol into steroid hormones. So guys with low T usually have high cholesterol. And women with too much estrogen, they have high cholesterol. So we fix the nutrients, it fixes the glands, they make more of the right balance of hormones. And hormones can also affect nutrients. Like, you know, insulin affects calcium, and calcium affects insulin. You know, when insulin is produced, it depletes calcium. When calcium is increased, it actually increases insulin output. But you see, it increases insulin, reduces calcium, so you got to put the calcium back in to get it to work again. It goes in a circle. And in fact, we call it the interlocking effect. You can't, if you put one nutrient in, it affects two others, which affect two others, and it goes on in a circle. But this lab is able to put the whole picture together. It's very complicated, and again, it goes back to that law of opposites. More of what you have, less of what you have, more of, and everything's got to be. The vitamins are custom made. Very inexpensive too. It amazes people sometimes. They go, "Oh, what are you doing here? This is amazing. I mean, this just can't work. It's too cheap." And the foods. Oh my God, I'm eating all this stuff that it says not to eat. Well, duh. That's why you're going to have problems. I mean, you just didn't know it. You thought broccoli was good for you. You didn't know that broccoli has isoflavones and sulforaphane, and right now, it's drawing your copper too high, which is stressing your liver, which is causing iron suppression. I mean, you don't know till you know. So, oh, but doc, I heard that if you have, broccoli, it prevents cancer. Not in all people. In some people, it prevents it. Other people, it doesn't do a thing. In other people, it can cause it. Who are you? How do you find out? You measure. You detect first what's there, then you correct it. And you have to do it very specifically. You can't just throw stuff in the body and expect it to do it automatically. There's a real way to do this. It's called quantum physics. And I think the Fox video, which we didn't have, takes you right to the science book and shows you on the atomic weight chart how it's done. So it's all written. And the most beautiful part is disease tendencies. I mean, they pick up disease tendencies. It's like a crystal ball. Things that are going wrong with your body that you're going to have. And, we can pick up diseases as much as 20, 30 years before they actually happen to you, just by the little nutritional upsets that build slowly and surely because you keep on repeating the same mistakes. You call that repetitive stress. You've heard of that, right?
Yeah. And, that point that you're making right now was so important to me because being able to have those early indicators means you can solve problems before they happen, as opposed to just waiting until something happens and saying, all right, now I'll have to take the drug for the rest of my life, or live with whatever consequences that actually have, or maybe not even live.
Well, I mean, that's probably the most important to this test because really, I want to get people to get a handle on disease. The government said, hey, 81% of disease could be eliminated. Dr. Wire, she created a political storm over it because everybody really was afraid we would solve disease, and they don't want to. Not in this country. Other countries, China, they're going crazy over this program. This program's translated into 15 different languages. I mean, my gosh, it was just opened up in Norway. But the sad thing is, the people with the worst looking nutrition test, this one included, and this is really the reason why this is the most popular nutrition test and lab in the world is because for so much less, it does so much more. They were able to cross-correlate with the other tests, and they have the best predictors of diet and supplements needed in the moment. Plus, they know already if your calcium's high, your vitamin D's too high, too. They already know because they put the tests side by side. So it cross-correlates a lot of things, so you don't have to take all these other tests. So for a lot of people, it's an econo version of all that expanded stuff we used to do with the celebs. Mm-hmm. By the way, I love this lady, Valerie Rice. She's really complimenting us. Did you see that little comment there? That was cute.
Yes. That was real nice.
But, yeah, so, no matter how you look at it, nutrition's the most powerful weapon we really have to help ourselves. You hear doctors all the time saying, hey, vitamins don't work. Well, that's because they're not proportioned to your need. They're not designed to meet exactly your body's specifications. And the tests they use, I mean, how many doctors sit down and talk to you about what did I talk to you about? How to change your diet, how to take the right vitamins. I mean, who does that with you? A nutritionist or dietitian, supposedly a nutritionist. They're talking products. Well, you need this product. Well, anybody talks a product to you first without a test, that is violating the German model of medicine. You're not really practicing nutrition scientifically, right? Would a doctor give you a drug to reduce cholesterol if he didn't first have a cholesterol level that was high in you? How does he get that from a test, right?
Exactly.
So, makes sense. Now, when you go around the world too. Other people, I talked to a fellow in South Africa, Yingweo, and even the doctors down there, they like this. I mean, but they're just unaware that they can become certified in it. So the doctor he's working with on site in Cape Town said, "Hey, I like that's American technology for you. That's the kind of stuff you find in America." Well, it's amazing because this guy, he's a tribal chief. He's a real interesting fellow. This particular fellow has overcome all these problems without drugs, and unlike most American doctors, his doctors are like, "We want to learn from this guy. This is great. We don't want you on drugs in South Africa. We want you to cost the system less because already, healthcare down there is a smidgen of the cost it is here." I mean, because they're not selling so many drugs. They don't have as many sick people. So they like the natural approach. Asian countries, like you go to South Korea, my God, they're crazy over this program. They don't have the money to throw away. They have to make things work. They have to take every food they eat and make it count. And just because, you hear from people, oh, the Mediterranean diet or the Asian diet or the Okinawan diet, it doesn't matter what they do in Okinawa unless you are an Okinawan. It might work for you if you go back to Okinawa. You're in America now. Everything's switched. All those Mediterranean diet, that doesn't mean a darn thing. All the foods that go with that, all the vitamins, it's all about testing what's in your body first. And then determining how to use the things that you have at your fingertips. You have your shopping list. You have what foods. You have what vitamins. They make them for you at a fraction of the cost than you thought, right? And even the vitamins they make to fix the problems have to come from New Zealand. Can you imagine? Why does it come from New Zealand? Do you have any idea?
Yes, and I'm guessing it's because we don't do things right here, or we don't have the right raw materials here.
Well, yeah, because the soil's so depleted, the food doesn't have the same nutrient density that it used to, in the late 1800s. In fact, the Rutgers did a study called the Furman-Bear Report, and in the Furman-Bear Report, they have the Furman-Bear scale, and the food of yesteryear, meaning before 37, was mostly on a scale of 8 to 10. So let's say you test the food for like an orange for vitamin C. So it should have, for a small orange, maybe 50 milligrams. And the food of yesteryear probably had close to 50. Today, you might get only 10 or 0 because the soil's overworked. We do use the growing seasons. Used to be, we'd grow in one soil, we'd put it to rest, grow in another field. We'd rotate crops. We'd put all this natural stuff, all this, the food residues, we'd plow it back into the soil. We didn't use anything artificial. Now, they still do it that way in New Zealand. Nothing's changed there. You test their soil, it's full of minerals. You test an orange from New Zealand, it's got 100 milligrams of vitamin C in it for a big orange. It's got it. In this country, anything goes. This lab tests food, tests food before you eat it and lines up the foods that are going to help you the most. But they still don't know what's in that food exactly. That's why they use the vitamins to absolutely make sure you're getting the right amount. So then in a future retest, they can judge the outcome and refine the program further. I see a question from Julia. She says, so how can we use this information to be healthier? What do we have to do? So we just need, what do we have to do, Lou? We have to go to where? There's a website, I guess.
Yeah, well, let's explain the process first. The idea is you got to get this test. You got to find out where you're at today, which is exactly what I did. It's not just guessing based on, oh, I have these issues, but it's finding out exactly where you're at today. Correct, doctor?
You got it. And so what we need is we send out a kit. We get some hair from you. We send it to the lab, and then we email the report. You don't have to come to California to do this. We're all over the world. It's all done. Look at this on Google Hangout. I mean, everything can be done on the computer because it doesn't matter even what you look like. We can put you on camera if I need to see you, with Skype or whatever. I mean, it's there. But the real action is inside your body. You've got to see, as we say, what's gotten into you lately? A bunch of mercury? Too much of one nutrient or another, What's in there? And then let's clean up the toxic stuff. Let's counterbalance the nutrients. Let's use this law of opposites as our guide. And the lab will do everything and lay it out to perfection, no doctor error. So I guess you have a website that they're supposed to go to. You might want to mention.
So if you go to, everybody write this down, science-of-health.com. science-of-health.com. So science of health, but it's dashes in between. Science-of-health.com. And what's going to happen is you'll send in these hair samples, you'll get back this test, and what's amazing afterwards, and Dr. Teft himself is going to sit down and go over it with you, because if you're like me, I got these 30 pages and said, wow, this is overwhelming, I don't really understand it. And the doctor spent, well over a couple hours with Margie and I talking about our specific results. But what's wonderful then, it tells you in there exactly what you need to do, what foods you need to avoid, and what foods you need to start consuming more of. And what was great for me is that it didn't do like you always hear and all these different diets, where it restricts you to where all the foods that you never want to eat in your life, that's the only thing you can eat. It doesn't do anything like that. It really has a full complement of foods you can eat, but it takes out the ones that are causing the imbalances for you and says, focus more over here. And then, if you want, you can add the vitamins to it, the right vitamins, which are then going to increase the results faster. So, of course, for me, I wanted to get to those results faster, so I'm taking those vitamins, but they're the specific vitamins designed for me. And by the way, Margie, my wife, had a completely different set of results, so her vitamins are different than mine. It's not just, take the same vitamin and each of you takes one a day and you'll be fine. It's about taking the right ones to start changing. So, Doctor, that was my layperson take on it. Do you want to give a better explanation of what's going to happen?
Yes. For this particular program, I'm going to talk to everybody, and I'm going to make sure the report will test the minerals for you. We'll know the absolute amount of each mineral and their related vitamins, like pantothenic acid, it's all in there. So the first page is devoted to nutritional elements, additional elements that do have a role in metabolism, but not as much as the primary ones. And of course, toxic, the deadly seven, all these metals, like everything from aluminum to arsenic, to mercury, to lead, to uranium. A lot of uranium out there. They're all carcinogenic, and we clean them right out of you. When we put the right stuff in, it forces the wrong stuff out. So the first page deals with that. Now the second page actually tells you what metabolic rate type you're at. Shows you where your biological potential lies, like I say on Fox videos, on the news, and CBS. And that's what we really want to know. Where's your metabolism at? And there's certain minerals that control the rate. They're the most powerful, and it lines it right up there. So we know what we call your genometabolic rate type. And with that in hand, we'll also know relative deficiencies and excesses along with the absolute ones on the first page. So there's two types of ways to be deficient. Absolutely low in that particular nutrient, or absolutely low in a nutrient plus another nutrient that's interfering with that nutrient being used, so you have like a double deficiency, which makes it even worse. And remember, old school medicine just looked at one vitamin, like no vitamin D, you get rickets. Well, there's only about 30 other nutrients combined with vitamin D that can give you rickets. They all have to be out of whack too. Vitamin D cannot get out of whack by itself. And even Dr. Oz with Oprah, he said that the reason she was gaining weight was because she didn't have enough vitamin D. I got news for you. Too much vitamin D makes you fat. I mean, these doctors don't know unless they know. I'm not trying to put anybody down, but it just shows you there's a big void out there. A lot of our favorite doctors just don't have the extra 4 years in this. I got board certified as soon as it was available. So the second page deals with ratios. It deals with metabolic proportions of things. What's antagonizing what, where the synergy is, all these minerals. It's a whole page of relativity. We call it Einstein's page. And then the next page more or less, explains whether you're slow or fast, what your sympathetic, your autonomic nervous system is doing. Is your brain telling your body to slow down or speed up in terms of energy? We're going to figure that out. Are your adrenal glands underproducing or overproducing? We're going to have that. Thyroid, same thing. Then it's going to go nutrient by nutrient. In Marge's case, remember, she had too much calcium. It had a whole bunch about what calcium's doing to her, which is what it was explaining her problems, wasn't it?
Yes.
So I remember she said, that's me, that's me, that's me, cold hands, and she went right there. That's the way it works. People will have the same experience. So pages, it can be a lot. Depends on what they find. Lots of things wrong with you or fewer things wrong. It just depends on what they find. Then after that, after going through each nutrient that's out of balance, the lab will tell you what's causing it. You can pinpoint why or why not. Maybe you're having a problem very closely. And then it takes you to the ratios, and it explains, hey, your sodium's too high, your magnesium's too low. That means your adrenal glands they're stressed out. You're in an alarm state of reaction. You have more inflammation potential, especially if your sodium and potassium ratio is off. I mean, they just line all this information up. Inflammation, everybody's talking about inflammation. What causes it? Well, too much sodium, not enough potassium. What causes this? That. Just about anything that can cause inflammation. It's at the core of the whole thing. So it's not about some weird phytonutrient or ashwagandha or curcumin. No, 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 no. That's all, again, with herbs and homeopathics, they're quick fixes. The real story is in getting the balance of nutrients. This report will tell you all that stuff. So it says, can you, oh gosh, these people are asking. Okay, then after that, I think we have Lindsay Jean on there.
That's me.
And then on top of that, it's going to go into all the toxic metals and what they are doing to you if you have a bunch. I hope you don't. Average American has 3 toxic metals in the high range. They're deadly. I have people that have had cancer. It comes and goes. We do the test. Nobody ever told them that the cancer is being caused by the cadmium in them or the arsenic. Nobody ever told them. We clean that out. They don't get cancer back again. That was the problem. 30% of all cancer is caused by toxic accumulation. The other third, nutritional imbalances. The other third are hormonal imbalances, or all bits of all 3 that nobody ever defines. They just say, oh, you got cancer, you got lymphatic cancer. I had 3 people in 1 week who had high copper levels. They were 12 mg%. That's the beginning of leukemia. That shows about 2 years before a medical test will show you have leukemia. And those people are saved because of that. See, we're trying to use everything we can to get ahead of the disease, even serious ones. Now, once you got bad problems, you got to go to the doc. This is not a substitute for that. This is complementary medicine. I want everybody to understand that. This is a program that helps you to get in control again. So that report will tell you these things. That report will then go into toxic ratios. If you have too much mercury, I forgot on the mercury and the zinc for you, but if you don't have enough zinc and your mercury is too high, it beats up the zinc, so the zinc can't help your immune system. It weakens your whole body. So you got to get rid of the mercury. Well, how do you get rid of mercury? Increase zinc. Well, but if you put more zinc in, you got to watch out that you don't push too much copper out. If you push too much copper out, it's going to cause calcium to go up. It's going to change your estrogen. It's going to change. It goes around in a circle. The lab has that all figured out for you, and it tries to explain it in layman's terms. But you remember you had 2 parts to your report, right? You had the doctor's report in the back. We gave you that secret doctor's report, which even goes into more detail for people that really want to know, plus had the disease tendencies and all of that. Then it tells you general guidelines for fast and slows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, fast and slow, stress types, etc. Certain foods, like I think you had the slow 1 type, so you're not supposed to have a lot of dairy right now, right?
Right.
That's going to make it worse. Okay, sorry, there goes that ice cream. But then you go down the list and you see that there's also certain vitamins that are contraindicated. Then it gets into specific foods. So the foods that are best for Lou and Margie right now, although there's a big difference between the 2, but still in general, right now they're supposed to have foods that are lower in calcium and higher in potassium and a whole bunch of other nutrients like methionine, B6, B1. It's all covered in their reports. I don't know what your report's going to say until the lab tests. So it'll tell you all that food by food, best, worst. It'll give you the disease tendencies. It'll give you the old doctor's report. It'll tell you when you should have a retest. Also,
but disease tendencies don't say that you have to get that disease. It's by getting these things in line, you can avoid those diseases, correct?
Absolutely. Boy, I wish we had the special befores and afters. Maybe we can show them on the next one, but we have people with all these disease tendencies. Like the average American has 14 disease tendencies at age 50. Well, you're 54. 14 disease tendencies showing that they never knew about, except they have symptoms. Yeah, I got fatigue. Yeah, my hair's falling. You know, little things. But I mean, actual diseases, things brewing that are, you know, chronic fatigue syndrome, osteoporosis. You know, I don't want to talk about Alzheimer's. It picks it up. Lots of stuff like that already is going. It's happening. It's going to happen if you don't fix yourself. Change begets change.
Yeah. All right. Let me interrupt here a second. Somebody's asking, why does the video keep stopping? This is streaming video. This is live. So if you're having a problem where it's not streaming fast enough, that's an internet problem at your site. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do. The system will eventually catch up, and you'll always be a little bit behind us. But that's why it keeps interrupting, is because your internet must not be fast enough to take the streaming video. I would shut down everything else that you're using the internet. Make sure everything else is shut down. That'll have your best shot at getting this thing through. Somebody asked if I could also post the link. I posted it there in the chat. I'm hoping that everybody can see the chat. I'm not sure how this works. Again, it's brand new technology, so I'm sorry. I'm not sure what everybody's seeing, but again, that link to go to is science-of-health.com. Science-of-health.com.
And this program is like $500 less than what I usually charge to do the VIP program. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's $997 normally, and you're charging, what is that, $397?
Yeah, for the first one, retest, you're about half that. On the VIP program, you get to talk to me. Whoop-de-doo. But because a lot of people just do it automatically. They use this as a backup. We have, we've been doing this since 2001, and we just have a lot of people that they get tested once or twice a year. They're pretty much in balance. We send them their multiples. We have people that take maybe $30 worth of vitamins that have perfect metabolisms. They just have to watch their diet. Everything's good. Their medical tests are all in balance. They never have problems. That's what we want. Freedom from sickness, for crying out loud. Control over what causes sickness. It's right here. Now, we can do other tests and stuff, but really 60% of America gets everything sorted out from this. That's why it's so beautiful. Plus, this is the best program to predict diet and your core vitamins. So, hey, look at that. Somebody went to the link.
But apparently they went to the wrong one, so I'm not sure what happened. You should be seeing personalized nutrition consultants at the top, and it should say Dr. Greg Teft at the top. So again, that website, to make sure everybody's going to the right place, is basically it's Science of Health, but just put a dash in between each of the words. So science-of-health.com. So www.science-of-health.com.
And remember, oh, hey, we have a question about Australia. No, Australia, I'm in a, they actually, I know the guys in Australia, they're trying to imitate us. Not quite the same thing, but yeah, you'll see a lot of imitators out there. Actually, I've trained a lot like Dr. McCullough, but a lot of them, you got to realize that the reason they call me America's leader in personalized nutrition is because I have all the best-selling books. I have the Reader's Digest, Health Awareness, all these things they don't have. Bells and whistles, you'll find out about me. But more than that, I've done so many darn tests that it's the Olympic team that hired me. It's the celebrities. It's not those other people. They're just trying to do what we do, and it's not always the same. All the labs are copying this, but they can't interpret it. I mean, it's really we're the leading source in the world for the correct stuff, and the oldest. And as far as anybody knows, and I've seen these people that have come up with tests from other entities that we end up doing them anyway because they didn't get the same kind of service or the right interpretation because they didn't use the lab or they used the wrong profile. So I urge people to do it the right way and not waste their time on this other stuff because it could ruin it for them. And that's a big problem. I have a lot of people that because they did the nutrition test, which is a good idea, but not with the right entity, they got turned off by the fact that it didn't go into the kind of depth that we do. You see what I'm saying? And it didn't lay it out and it was more of a ripoff. They end up trying to add all these things or make their own vitamins. I mean, you can't. The lab's got to do it. It's got to be by the book. It's the only way. I'm not smart enough. You're not smart enough. We need the lab to do that.
Let me ask you a different question. I'm surprised nobody's asked it. Maybe because there's nobody young on the call. I don't know. But I was surprised nobody said, well, if I'm a young person, do I really need to do this or do I need to wait until I start seeing some symptoms of problems?
Well, that's the whole problem. The youth of today look worse than a lot of their parents and grandparents. I'm getting tests that look like older folk tests. Younger people are getting out of whack sooner and sooner. They're on drugs sooner and sooner. They have all these problems. I mean, look at even the school kids. I think my record in office was I had an 11-year-old girl on 9 medications. Is that crazy? That's criminal. And all these problems, we unraveled it. I had a fellow, his name is Matt, young fellow had asthma. All we had to do is increase his magnesium, get his molybdenum up, get rid of, he had too much copper, which was causing a sulfite sensitivity. Asthma went away and stayed away for the rest of his life. ADD, all that stuff. So it's the mechanism for all that we fix at the core. At the bottom of the house, we're building a foundation, not looking at the roof like regular medicine and working their way down. We are starting at the bottom and rebuilding so the whole structure functionally is sound and structurally is sound. Everything's doing what it's supposed to do. And you're just a chemical equation. That is, you need more of these chemicals and less of those to get your body to produce the most energy possible. It's that simple. But food by food, every food's different. You know, people think, oh, you are what you eat and your body takes what it needs and drops the rest. If that was true, there would be no imperfect tests.
Right.
Everybody would have a perfect test. Sorry, but that doesn't work. Like I said earlier, you know, improper diet, stress, medications, pollution, nutritional supplements that aren't correct, inherited patterns, both genetically and even sociologically, like what your parents expose you to. Are you having pizza every Friday? All of that gets outside the realm of what your body can control inside. So you need help. You need that specific input. You need more of this and more of that. You got to break it down to specifics. And you can't expect what works for one person to work for the next. Think of the Eskimo and the East Indian Hindu vegetarian to a smaller degree. So I'm amazed. In fact, you know, I haven't gotten a perfect hair test or anything else from an American in, like I said, 7 years. That's disgusting. I talk to the labs, they say, oh no, it's getting worse. And kids, by the millions, are all over the place. They're going to be career medical patients for the rest of their lives because of this. They can't figure out nutrition because they're not using the test to guide them. Not products. When somebody says, well, I got this product for you, I say, well, I need a test to know if I need that product, don't I? They think back and they go, well, I never heard of that before. Won't your body just use the good stuff? No, I wish it would. It would be all be a lot easier. But we'd have no diet-related disease, would we? Everybody would live to be 166, like in the Arizonian biosphere. And remember, I remember I told you about that 82-year-old lady that we've been working with for almost 30 years.
I was going to bring that up.
She's on the web. She's on the other website, Muriel. She's been with us for 30 years almost now, straight in office and then through the web. Since, you know, even with outside of the practices, she's kept with it. And her husband, who works for NASA, loves it. He's a PhD. She's having such great results, and her doctors think she's such a freak of nature because she's not all drugged up. By the way, she's the one that sent me that cartoon. Remember that cartoon I showed you? That was Muriel's cartoon. She's really cute. But her husband sent her in for an actual age indication study at UCLA. They cost thousands of dollars. They do. You ever hear of DEXA scans? And they do all these tests, and they try to figure out your true biological age. Are you 50, but your body's really 30? That kind of thing. At 82 years old, guess how old they said she really was, biologically speaking and physiologically speaking?
How old?
49.
So that's amazing. That's 33 years difference.
They couldn't believe it. They said, how are you doing this? She goes, orthomolecular medicine. Oh, we've heard of that. UCLA did something. The nutrition department did something. But they're a bunch of whacks. Believe it or not, the medical department, the nutrition department at UCLA don't work together. At UCI and Irvine, they do. But that's because the people who are doing the research, for the most part, at UCLA are getting drug money. UCI gets the most vitamin money of any UC college in the system. So it depends on who's funding the research, a lot of times as to their bias. So she told the doctor to call me if he had any questions. You know, she thought maybe he would want to know more about what I'm doing, just for the sake of it. So he calls, and he says, you know, Muriel's one of the youngest oldsters we've ever had. She goes, I think she's the record. So what do you do? I said, I told him exactly a lot of the stuff we're talking about. 10 minutes I talked to him, and you know what he says at the end of the conversation?
What's that?
Good job. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Doc. You'd think he'd want to know more about it or get involved somehow. Nah, he's just happy to make his money from doing DEXA scans all day. That's what a medicine's become, you know. But he thought it was interesting anyway. So at least he took the time.
But, you know, it shames me a little bit because I realize she has a younger body than I probably have at this point. But I'm excited to know that I can change all that.
Well, you know, I wanted to have my mother on a website. She was 90 when she passed away, but she passed away from falling. not old age. I wanted to have a game. Guess how old this woman is? She was a fast metabolism, which I'm going to turn you into. And she didn't have any real health problem. I mean, it was pretty, and she had smoked for a while during her, earlier years, and she was afraid that might cause problems. And so she was really good on the program. She listened to her son, and she was one of my best test cases. Zero, disease tendencies. She was a fast metabolism. She was very active. She used to walk 3 miles a day with my uncle. So she did, I wanted to put her on the website, and most people thought she was maybe in her 60s or something. And I wanted to use my own mother so people could see that we do this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
One thing for me to put a picture of me with muscles up there. It's another thing to put, people around you like your own mother, and then have people guess. Because I wanted to do something with it, but she passed away, and I can't do it now. But she's just, and I want to remind anybody over there, when you get older, watch out that you don't fall down. She tripped on a rug. That's what killed her. She fell forward, hit her head on a door, and that was it. Not from old age. She would have probably made 120 the way she was going. So, in practice, my own family's been guinea pigs, except my brother won't do a darn thing. And he's lost all his hair. He looks like my father, not like my brother.
Wow.
He was 20 years older than me. Yeah, it's funny. People don't even think we're, we think, like last time I was with him, some guy says, "Is that your son?" Meaning me. He goes, "No, that's my younger brother." I'm like, uh-oh. He's going to beat me up. He's a Vietnam vet. I'm in trouble now.
Yeah, he must have loved that.
So, hey, did you see this? WS is unable to get the correct connection.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening because Julia was able to get through, and I'm able to get through. Again, I'm not sure what you're typing in. Well, let's make sure everybody's typing in the right thing. So go to www.science-of-health.com, and I'm going to go ahead and type it in here one more time so you have it.
So while you type that in, I just want to mention again, we're so lucky, Lou, because you can use blood, urine, feces, saliva, hair, breath, stool, all these different specimens from the body to figure certain things out, but they all have certain value where others don't. Blood only has about maybe 18% of what you could test you can get out of blood. You can't get minerals out of blood reliably. The hair they found was the best for minerals, hands down, which is great because it makes it cheaper and easier to do. Same for urine. They tried minerals. Urine, just the minerals being kicked out, not what the cells are using. Hair actually is a biopsy. It tells you what the cells are using. That's most important as an example. So, people often wonder, why are we doing blood? Well, it doesn't work for this. It works for other things, maybe, but not in this case, which makes it a lot easier. Saliva is the best for hormones, but again, it's been cross-correlated with minerals. So, we know if your zinc is too high, that your progesterone is too high, and your estrogen is too low if you're a woman, or your testosterone is building up extra bad tests. I mean, all these things. Lou, if we had time and you wanted to go into detail, I could go on. I told you my longest lecture was 8.5 hours straight. They wouldn't let me go. They said, go. They kept on feeding me water and snacks. This is great. But, that's the point. It's very complex, but it's really something that the lab has to do for us, and we're bringing to you as an economy program. So, like when you see in the video, that video we spoke of, it is the secret of actors and athletes. Top athletes all do this. Most of your actors and actresses are doing this. They're using this program and other testing to shortcuts to faster results for less effort. Of course, they're taking every other shortcut in the book too, like surgeries and things like that. Yeah. But this is a baseline. I mean, it's a given now. When I first started doing this at Malibu Health and Rehab, and I was on CBS this morning, Dr. Bob Torman, used to have me on as a guest, and I'd be with Vince Neil from Motley Crue and his model wife, or Elena DiCastro, a model, whoever was there, and we'd be talking about how this works, kind of like what we're doing, just for, maybe 60 seconds or so, try to give them an idea, and then they comment on it. But back then, Dr. Bob Torman would say, what Dr. Teff's doing is the next step in medicine. We won't need drugs. We're just going to fix things before they happen with foods and vitamins. He says, but the problem is, it's very expensive and very complicated. So I'm going to say it's quintessential to the rich and famous, but it's coming to your door one of these days. And when he said that, he did me a great favor, because I had everybody from the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to the Sachs family. They own Sachs. Hey, I'm rich and famous. I want to do that. I don't care about money. I had all this stuff. It was good for that level. And I was able to do all these tests and see that when you do these thousands of dollars worth of tests, that, my God, when vitamin D is high, calcium's high. When potassium's low, you're low in B6. When cobalt's too high, you have a B12 problem. You can't absorb. I mean, it's all there. I've seen it right next to each other. So that's how I got the idea. I wanted to find that shortcut test that cut to the chase for the least amount of money and the least amount of effort. That's why we use this. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's the cure for everything, but let's just say it is the agreed by all the journals, 16 of them, that you got to know minerals before you try to do anything else with vitamins or anything else. Because if you don't know minerals, you can't know how much of each vitamin and amino and fatty acid, even sugar compounds, all that's related to minerals. So if you just put in a vitamin as an example, I need more, name a vitamin, B5. And your magnesium's normal and your vitamin A is too high. The B5 will go in, it'll come right out of your urine. You got to fix the mineral. And if you do, you won't even need the B5, because the minerals set the pace for all those nutrients to work. They create the enzymes, the transfer proteins and connectors for DNA. I mean, prostaglandins, the whole thing is backtracked to minerals. So everybody's at that starting point. Where we go from here is a journey to wellness. And you're not missing anything. Allergy tests, hey, there are calcium-related allergies, copper-related allergies, histamine-related allergies that show here. Remember that in your section, in your report? They cross-correlated all these allergies. A lot of people have allergy tests, but it still doesn't tell you about the composition of your body. It doesn't tell you what foods are going to reinstate the balance you need. It just tells you what you might be allergic to in the moment, and that's not the whole story either. Hormone tests. I have people taking hormones on top of vitamins that are all out of balance. They never get the right results. I had a fellow on growth hormone that was doing great for 3 months. He was on with another doc. He was on low T. They got him on testosterone and growth hormone. He wanted to have more muscles and have more energy. He did. And then all of a sudden, his A1C went up. Well, guess what? When your nutrients are out of balance, first of all, you're going to have a problem with testosterone and growth hormone, because they would be normal if your nutrients were in balance. But when you're taking hormones on top of nutrient imbalances, you start to cause other problems. In his case, diabetes was beginning. He was taking these hormones, but in the face of not enough manganese and too much, not enough iron, he was creating a diabetic problem. So he started to crash. We fixed his nutrients, got him off the drugs, and he's doing just fine. So hormones aren't the whole answer either. You got to realize it's the holistic picture, a full body perspective, leaving no stone left unturned. And this is the greatest perspective on that whole world inside of you. That's why we use this test. I would do whatever was the best to begin with, but this is it. And you know what? The lab is #1 in the world. More countries, more people. And we're its oldest customer, I think, one of them. Because they're the best. I've tried them all. I know the people they write the lab manuals. I should have brought some lab. I have some out here. The books are thick as a brick, that tell you it's all written. Everything I'm telling you comes right out of the lab manuals. People can't believe there's so much on it. But it's there. But the test puts it all into action for you. So I ask people, everybody in America, please practice nutrition. The solution to all illness can be found in nutrition. And that means we got to test you first before we apply anything. We are using a medically proven program. Most people, like that fellow that was on the program, George Davis, 6 months. He had 23 symptoms. In the 6th month, he had 1 left. In 6 months, 1 left. I have other people that had 30, 40 disease tendencies down to 0. They see it happen as they do it. Eat more of that, less of this. Little by little, their bodies start moving in the right direction. You know, I tell people to write it down because they forget that they ever had the problem. I have a guy right now, Jason. just talked to Jason. He sent me his blood test. Jason had a triple bypass at age 50. That's got to make you feel better, Lou, right? You did 50. He had a triple bypass. And he has been on the program for 2 years now. His cholesterol has come from 260 to 200 without drugs. And the calcium deposits inside of his carotid arteries, you know these arteries here, have disappeared on the last echogram. Gone. Goodbye. The doctor says, how did you do this? You taking the drugs I prescribed? He hasn't taken any drugs for 2 years. He says, no, doc, here they are. I haven't taken one. Nada. And the doctor didn't believe me. He says, what are you doing? You're buying it off the web, off the internet. He couldn't believe it. And he says, no, just like that Muriel with UCLA. He says, no, this guy, this Dr. Tefts, he's crazy, but he's good. No, he doesn't think I'm crazy. He just thinks I'm zealous. But he's the same fellow. He belongs to the gym locally that does infomercials. I have all these people in the gym because of him saying, hey, I got my test. I keep them in the locker. Here's a before and after. I think he wants to do marketing for us. And so I have all these people in the gym now. I try to keep a low profile, but he's ruined that for me now. But at any rate, yeah, so I mean, that kind of stuff can happen. The mechanism by which he plaqued up in the first place, why he had the heart attack, we reversed it. So the calcium dissolves outside of the blood vessels. I don't know if you saw that Yahoo study where they said taking calcium can cause plaque buildup. Well, yeah, if your body doesn't need calcium, it's going to go into places besides the bone. And you take more vitamin D, and it doesn't stick it in bone. It still sticks it in. It actually accelerates the problem. Now, just so you all know, your vitamins, I know you got some vitamins you're doing the program. Remember, vitamins do two things in this program. They accelerate results 20 to 40 times over food alone. Pretty impressive, right? 20 to 40 times. So it happens fast. Plus, the lab uses, they take about 62 nutrients, they come up with the ideal formula for you, and then they mix and match to get their overall formula mixture just right for you, right? And then they use how your body responds as reasons to change it. They refine the program. Their goal, again, is to get you on as few vitamins as possible. But they're able to say, oh, my God, you know, Lou's supposed to have 100 milligrams of B6, and his next set of test results in 3 or 4 months, in his case, guess what? The calcium and magnesium ratio didn't change. We've got to double it. So they'll double it. Or it did change, so we can back it down. You see, and they do that through 62 nutrients. And they mix and match it. And it's all organic, all cold, all the good stuff. These are the guys who came up with the fact that you can't use junky stuff. But they actually recommend people to take the cheap vitamins because they do less damage than the powerful ones that you can buy over the counter. So we have all these people that are taking all these expensive vitamins, and it's not making them better because they're the wrong ones.
I mean, the way I look at this, and I just want to speak from my heart here for a minute. When I first heard about you, I thought, you know, I was a little bit skeptical because there's so many people out there that are just hawking vitamins and things like that and don't know what they're talking about. And it's like, oh, yeah, there's another one of these Garcinia things or whatever, Acai pills or whatever. And I wasn't that interested. But when I started listening to you and saw the science behind it and saw that you're getting real results about you, and then your own body, and then I'm seeing the results that you can have, what I'm asking myself is why anybody wouldn't want to do this, because what you're going to see is a healthier body, a more vital body, and without all the need or not going down the disease route, not heading towards all kinds of problems. It's of course you'd want to do this. And I love what you just said. The goal is to get you off of everything, to get you down to not needing so much, so that you're just eating properly, eating the right things for your body.
Well, and that's a funny thing, you know, we're trying, people, I'm happy when people, like we have people get improved, and they go, oh my God, I have less vitamins to take, this is great. Constantly people say, hey, you're Mr. America, you're this and that, you're in excellent shape, blah, 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 blah. You must be in a lot of vitamins. I go, no, about $30 worth a month, that's all I need to stay in place. But unfortunately, at least in this country, it seems like there's just, with the food we have, it's not that nutritious, even the right ones. So it seems that I don't have anybody that doesn't have to take a little bit of something to stay in perfect genetic signature. You know, this is so powerful. I'll give you an example. One of my mentors in the second book, Dr. Hoffer, who's the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Orthomolecular Medicine, he just passed away in his 90s because he exhausted himself on a world tour. But he was hated. He's an MD and a PhD. But he was hated by the American Medical Association because he treated 70% of his schizophrenic patients without drugs. Without drugs. He did it with niacin, tyrosine, at super duper amounts of methionine. There's a couple other things you use, vitamin C. I mean, we're talking 50, 100 times more than what an recommended dietary allowance, or you know what they use as specific dietary recommendations. All this new nonsense, which has nothing to do with the needs of your body anyway. And he didn't have to put people on drugs, and they hated him for it. But they accused him. They said, "Oh, you're megadosing this niacin, and it's going to cause kidney stones." And this. Do you realize that he used the same test? This test is one. In fact, he's one of the guys that told me about it. And other tests for the people with schizophrenia, amino test, couple things. And do you realize that anybody he ever megadosed on any of those nutrients, 50, 70 times more than what they thought was you should take, that's the human body's capable of, not a one had a side effect because their darn body needed it. It used every bit up, and it never hurt a darn thing. So when your body needs it, it doesn't hurt it. It helps it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't need it, excesses do more damages than deficiencies. Because you got an excess building up in the wrong place. You got to clean that out while you bring up the other ones that it's suppressing, that it's creating a false deficiency in. So if zinc goes up, it keeps copper down. If calcium goes up, it keeps magnesium down too high. So it's that little, you know, interlocking effect, almost like a seesaw.
You know,
push down at one end and it makes the other one go up.
I've seen a lot of positive aspects here, and I don't mean to be a fatalist and scare people, but the other part of the report that was kind of scary, and it didn't show up in mine, but it did show up in Margie's, was she had some high level, some toxins in her body, one of them being barium. And Doctor, just talk for a moment about the dangers of the toxins in the body, or if you want to use her as an example on the high barium, what that can do and what needs to be done to get rid of it. But imagine walking around with these toxins in your body and you don't even know it.
Yeah, well, barium it's carcinogenic. We call it the insect mineral. It's used in insecticides. It's actually a neurotoxin. It degrades your nervous system. It can affect your brain. A lot of people with Alzheimer's get it. And, you know, the way you get rid of it is, first of all, figure out where it's coming from. Is it the water supply? Have you had barium enemas or something? You know, barium studies, you can collect barium. You know, it can be in products. Like I think in her case, we were afraid that it might be from the insecticides she was using in the garden. Wasn't that true?
Yes.
I think that was the case, yeah. So she's, first of all, you got to figure out where it's coming from. Wear the gloves. Don't let it come in contact, because on you is in you, too. A lot of people don't realize that. Right. With the chlorine in pool, more gets in through your skin than, you know, would if you drank it, believe it or not. Not a good thing. But so with the barium, bringing up potassium's a key ingredient. Potassium kicks barium out of your body, for one thing. The amino acid methionine kicks it out. She needed more methionine-rich foods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Iron kicks it out. She needs a little more iron. Zinc kicks it out. A little more zinc. So by bringing the calcium down, which, by the way, attracts it. Calcium likes barium. Magnesium likes barium, so we got to lower those. And bringing up the potassium, the zinc, the iron, and getting rid of the sources, or at least the way that the barium's coming into her, all of that is going to add up to that barium's going to go whoosh, right out. And in future tests, you're going to see it go whoop, right down and disappear. No more carcinogen. No more neurotoxin. It also can cause a sensitive stomach. It interferes with the digestive process. It can also hurt the pancreas. I mean, this is written in these lab books. This is what I've been studying all my life and talking about. People have no idea. Can you imagine doctors talking about this on top of everything else? Hey, your cholesterol is a zinc and copper problem. Hey, your high blood pressure is because, well, you know, you got too much cadmium in you. Hey, your cancer, they don't even know where cancer comes from. Your cancer is from too much copper. They don't even figure it out. And we're missing that whole point. Here, we're not. We're going to take care of that slack. We're going to work through that gray area. All those things the doctor's not doing. That's why we call it complementary medicine, to fill in the gray areas that are being glossed over so that you have more control over your own health. And the net effect in terms of medical tests is, of course, you're not going to get sick as much or at all from germs. Your body's response is better. Your body will heal faster. Well, if you get cut or hurt somehow, you'll heal faster. If you have degenerative disease like heart disease, which starts off when you're born, even before you're born, if your mom's doing a lot of drugs and smoking, hopefully not, it just builds by you repeatedly eating the things that help it to promote itself. We want to nip it in the bud and use that law of opposites. Put the opposite amount of nutrients in that your body's got. So opposite means more. Remember that law of opposites. Opposites attract. That's all we're doing. More the nutrients your body's low in, less the ones you're high in. Identify things like barium. Identify things like too much calcium. Identify deficiencies and excesses. All of that. And put it into proper context. And you can finally control yourself. It's a self-research, self-improvement, self-control program now. And all it's going to do is make your health that much more bulletproof. Decrease fatigue. Remember we talked about fatigue. That's the cardinal sign. Chronic fatigue is crazy in this country. We're #1 in the world for chronic fatigue. By the way, Mexico passes up for diabetes type 2. We're tops of the list for obesity. It's all about the sedative nutrients, the nutrients that make you fat, building up against the ones that are not going to let you get fat, not being high enough. That's all it is. I mean, minerals, vitamins, aminos, fatty acids. Yeah, calories count, but let's say to keep your weight where it is, let's say it's 2,000 calories. I can create 3 different diets at 2,000 calories just by manipulating the sedative and stimulating nutrients for you, Lou. One of those diets, you'll gain weight even though you're not supposed to, calorie by calorie. One, you'll stay the same, and one, you'll lose weight, all because of our balance of the micronutrients. Putting in more things that open up your body, creating more energy, make it hungry to release energy, and to also use nutrients. Remember, metabolism is based on digestion, absorption, utilization, and elimination. We are engineering a better metabolism for you, a fast metabolism. And by the way, when you eat wrong and you let these things happen, it damages your genes. Okay, Dr. Hall did a study. He did it with animals. It's the same for humans. It's been extrapolated from that. He worked with cats because they don't live as long, and he was able to do this. He also worked with rats and cats. But he fed them foods that were incompatible with them, and found that not only did these animals get sick, but he measured the effect on genes. And he found that more and more defective genes occurred the longer you did that. And in our case, it's the same thing. And we measured genes. People say, well, why don't you do a gene test? Well, genes don't tell you how much mercury is in you. They actually come after all this, and there's no before and after. It's metabolism that counts, because whatever your genes want, your metabolism's not delivering. Even Time Magazine did like a 10-page article on, what runs your gene or metabolism. They said, no, metabolism does in the moment. Because if you're eating stuff that your metabolism can't deal with, it weakens the genes, and it encourages the bad genes to express over the good ones. So every time you eat the right stuff, you actually strengthen the good genes in you for future generations. When you do the opposite and you continue making the same nutritional mistakes, it actually creates single nucleotide polymorphisms, mutations of the genetic code that then mix up in future generations. So it might shorten your life, but then your offspring inherit the same gene, and if they continue eating the same things that are not right for them, maybe they're having too much dairy or too much gluten or whatever it is, it can be anything. The next generation, the gene tries to adjust. They might live a little longer, but it takes about 10 generations of people dying young and suffering diseases and eating that food before the genes can adjust to it. But in the meantime, people suffer because it's not compatible with the gene. And that's how diabetes got started. All these societies around the world that don't, these tribes that don't have type 2 diabetes, they never had sugar. Sugar was never something, concentrated sugar ruins your metabolism in so many ways I can't tell you, which in effect weakens your genes and allows the diabetes type 2 to not only develop in your own lifetime, but creates a weakness in the gene for the next generation. And if they start eating sugar and they marry somebody that has diabetes type 2, it's going to eventually become a double-sided genetic deformity where you're stuck with real diabetes. That's how it happens. So when you feed your metabolism, you feed your genes the right stuff. And it's all about proportioning. It's all about putting things together in groups as needed. These stimulating nutrients that work together versus these sedative ones. That law of opposites. It's so simple. You saw it in your test.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything so simple? It boils down to choosing more of some things and less of other things. Taking these vitamins instead of those. And magical things will start to happen.
And that's what I'm so excited about, is that it is rather simple. It is about just eating better and the right things. And I'm going to start seeing changes. And it was, again, very scary for me to see that Margie had a lot of toxins in her bloodstream, or in her body. But to know that we can now get rid of those toxins, and that's going to prevent some of the diseases that might have otherwise have occurred for her, is tremendous. A tremendous value for me. So I'm so thankful that I met you. I'm so thankful that we got part of this program. And that's what I suggest for everybody else. Get the test. See where you're at right now. I think you're going to be amazed at what you find out about yourself. I mean, I was totally amazed. And
well, I wanted to say that's why the rich and famous came running out of the woodwork to do this back in Malibu. They said, I got all the money in the world. Now I want to enjoy life, and I'm not feeling so good. So what can you do for me? Whether it was Crown Prince Nawal Fasad Saeed, Faisal, he's got a long name. I can't say it fast. Whether it was Peninsula Hotel, having headaches. He was full of mercury. Nobody told him. He says, you want to come back to Saudi Arabia? I said, no, I'm going to stay here. It was cute. But, same with a lot of movie stars. I had these supermodels coming in smoking cigarettes to stay thin. I don't want to mention names. They get really mad at me because they don't want you to know the dirty secrets.
Right.
You get them off the cigarettes and they're able to stay thin. Hey, that's all they really wanted in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Certain foods charge them up. More consistent energy levels. Obviously, that's a big factor. Less fat. Slow aging, extension of youth, faster metabolisms, better digest. I mean, name anything you want in this life. More hair, better skin. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's all about metabolic balance. It's all about getting your nutrients in order. Now, how many people out there want to do that for you? Not many.
No. And then it's so reasonable. I mean, when you think about your normal, if you go in for an array of tests, how much you're going to pay to have an array of medical tests done, they don't give you near the amount of information that you're getting from this. I mean, that's what I was really impressed with, how much information I got in the end, and coming up with a plan that doesn't include a whole bunch of medicines for me to take that's going to correct these different problems.
And we like to say an ounce of prevention is worth a megakiloton of cure, right? So that's where you're coming from. So I don't want to suffer, because once you really get sick, say goodbye to not only feeling right, but losing a lot of the money you fought so hard to keep, especially in today's healthcare system. Who knows where it's going.
So it's $397. You're going to love getting the test, getting the feedback, and you're going to love the time that you spent with Dr. Teff personally going over the results with you, because it is so interesting. And I promise you that you will need him to decipher everything. Because when Margaret and I first went through it, I'm like, oh my God, I think maybe we're dying. I'm not sure here what it's saying to us. But then he put it all in perspective, and then come up with what is the plan, what are the right foods to be eating, and we can change this. And that's the big thing for me, is these things that have been bothering me that I thought, well, that's just part of old age. At 54, I'm old. Now go away. And I'm not old anymore. I'm going to be young. And that's what's really exciting about this. And this is still in the preventative stages. So I'm really thrilled about it. I want to thank you, Doctor, publicly here for what you're doing for us. And I want to encourage everybody else, take advantage of this. This is not about real estate investing and making money and so forth. This is about taking care of you and making sure that you're there for a long haul to enjoy your time, enjoy the time with your family. I've got grandkids now. I want to be able to see those grandkids grow up and get married and be part of their lives too. And I want to do that in a healthy way. I want to be able to go to Disney World and walk all over the park and not think, oh my gosh, I need a wheelchair to get me from one ride to the next ride because I'm so tired. I want to have that vitality. And because of this, I'm able to do it. And that's what I want for you. And that's why I brought Dr. Teff to you, because even though I knew it was outside, typical real estate investing information, I just thought it would be something that you would be very interested in, and something that, to me, every American should be going after and getting this test done and taking care of it. So go to, again, it's www.science-of-health.com. I posted it there in links. You can copy and paste it. Somebody else said they were able to copy and paste it, and it worked for them. Get this test done right away and start getting healthy. I promise you, you're going to feel completely different. And a year from now, you're going to think, how was I ever going down that other path? Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Dr. Teff, for doing this for me, because now I'm leading a different life, and that's really what I want for you.
And you know what you're doing, Lou. You finally have some idea of what really is going to help you. That's the most beautiful part. When I used to teach at Learning Annex, we called this the science of feeling good. When you said you want to feel good, that's what we called it, because feeling good is worth more than anything. And I don't care how many apartments you own or anything else. If you're not, your health to me is your first investment, no matter what. Because whether you're rich or poor, it's the one thing that's going to drag you down if it's not in balance.
And you're so right, knowing what to do, because think about all the different diet books and all the different things that you read and buy and so forth that's going to get you healthy, but you don't really know what you're doing, so it always feels like you're just kind of shooting in the dark and hoping that something's going to work. And then you go to the medical doctor and he gives you a bunch of drugs. I'll tell you that when I had the high blood pressure, and it wasn't super high, but it was definitely on the high side, and I started taking the blood pressure medicine, and all of a sudden I started feeling all these other side effects. And I said, well, this isn't good. All I'm trading is one problem for another problem, but what else am I supposed to do about it? So I'm so glad to be able to do this in a healthy and natural way, and not be just shooting in the dark, but rather have a real plan to follow to getting healthy. So thank you very much, Doctor.
My pleasure, and Lou, it's just been a pleasure knowing you, and it's great working with you, and you have a great attitude. So thank you for having me again, and everybody that attended this webinar. I thank you again for finding out about this. If we can just get people to be more aware of it, I'm telling you that Dr. Wire said 81% of the people we could eliminate 81% of disease in the United States in 30 years if we could get everybody doing this kind of thing. That's the most powerful statement I've ever heard. And I believe, just in my own experience, for the many people, I've just seen amazing results. And people don't even expect it to work. And when it does, they're saying, hey, you know what? It's working. Yeah, finally, because you're doing it right. So I implore people to take a close look at this. And anybody from this seminar is a VIP in our program. So you'll get the best treatment I can give them.
So, again, I'll give you that website one last time. You can see it on the chat side, or science-of-health.com. If you have any problems, you need any other questions answered, please feel free to write me. I always answer all my emails personally. I review it. I don't have it go through somebody else and get filtered. It comes directly to me, and I answer all of my emails myself. It's lou@investorriches.com. Again, that's lou@investorriches.com.
Hey, Lou, I wanted to interject one thing, too. I think we did this with talking with somebody else. But I can give you the phone number for us. If somebody has trouble, last resort, they could call the office 949-813-5699. 949-813-5699. If all else fails, we'll be glad to help you. If we're off hours or something, just leave a message and we'll call you back, and we'll make sure you get one of these programs one way or the other. So, yeah. I think Lindsay just popped it on the screen there. So if worst case, but I think they should go to the website first, the one that you gave, and then they have you. So this can't fail. If you want to do it, you're going to get to it, as they say.
All right, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being part of the call tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Please send me your feedback. I'd love to hear it. And Dr. Tuff, thanks once again, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.